Hello everybody, I'm Driftwood. Welcome to Learning GameMaker Studio 2. In this episode we're going to do a number of things, but I think I should just show you real quick what we're going to be making to see if that's something you're interested in doing in your game. This is just one format, and you can do this in many different ways, but this is an easy way to do it, so let's get to it. So here's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to show you how to display this text on the top. I'm going to show you how to display some boxes and, with color rings, outlines, and more text, and how to align it, and how to set up a GUI. I'm going to teach you how to create you already know how to do the sprites, I trust, but we're going to go through the simple steps of making the sprite, make it rotate, and then we're going to make an object for that sprite to be represented, and we're also going to make an object that spawns the material object. So we're going to make an item spawner. We're also going to write the code to detect collisions and play the whatever other effects you want to happen when you get the collision. We're also going to make it so that when you collide with these material objects that are being spawned around the world, it adds to your materials. So we're basically a robot flying around the planet, collecting natural materials that are growing on that planet. The rates and how fast they grow is up to how fast you set the alarm. All of it's up to you. It's in the code. You change it however you want. But I think the basic structure of how to do it is going to be the same. And so it'll be real. Once you figure it out, you'll be able to manipulate it and change it and make it work how you want to in your game. Once we've got these codes, once we've got some materials, we're also going to do one more thing. We're going to learn how to spawn in something using those materials. So in this case, if I've collected materials. If I have over 10 of them, I can press the space bar and basically build an oxygen generator. And you can see the materials go down as I'm placing these O2 things, the oxygen generators down. If I try to press spacebar and I don't have 10, it won't do anything. But if I go around and collect some of these, and I get about 10 of them, then I can place an oxygen generator right there. And that'll be all we cover, and then maybe in the next one we'll talk about how to get fuel and how to use fuel to power those generators, so that basically the idea behind the game is you collect materials, you use those materials to make machines and stuff on the planet, greenhouses and stuff like that, and then once you've got those built, you have to make fuel, and then you use fuel to power those machines, and then you basically use the generators to create oxygen in the atmosphere, and then there's like a global oxygen level, and once the global oxygen level gets to full, then you win the game, and you've made the planet habitable for the people who sent you, because you're just a robot. You're just a drift bot. But anyway, let's take a look at the code. Hopefully that sounds like you could use this information in a certain way. That might be helpful to you. So right off the bat, the sprite's super easy. Create a new sprite by right-clicking and create new. And then what were the dimensions I used for the material? 16 by 16. You just click right here and edit this if you want. If you have maintain aspect ratio on, you could literally just go hit 1:6 and then apply, and it'll update the bottom one automatically. I'm centering. Manually centering. Well, I did a middle center, but if your circle is not directly in the center or whatever, you could just kind of move it around so that it goes, it's an even number, so it doesn't I don't know. Just make sure that the center thing is clicked sort of in the center, because we're going to rotate it, but you can put it however you want, really. Doesn't need any animation, because we're going to fake animate it. We're going to rotate it, and it's going to be more memory efficient that way. Okay, so we've got our sprite. Let's go ahead and create a material. So go to Objects, right-click, Create New, and then call it whatever you want. Probably the same thing as the sprite, but instead of S underscore, you use O underscore, and that'll be a material. We're going to give it two events. We're going to give it a create and a step event. So on the create event, we want to randomize its position. We could do this in the spawner as well, but it's easier just to do that right here. So we're going to say X equals a random range between 32, which is the X value, and room width minus 32. So it's going to take the whole room that you're in. So this means it may not even spawn on screen. It could spawn anywhere in the world. That's why we're doing the room width minus 32. And I'm using the 32 buffer on both sides so that it doesn't spawn at the edge of the room, because I put in barriers to stop the player from getting off the map. So I don't want it to spawn where the player can see it and it's out of range. So it can only spawn where the player has access to it. That's why I use this little buffer. You do the same thing for Y, except you use room height instead of room width, and that's basically it. For the step event, all you're doing is checking to see if the player is at the same spot as the material. So we're going to make a conditional statement. We're going to say if place underscore meeting x, y, which is this local objects X and Y location. So if this location is the same as the player's location, or inside the player's bounding box, then do this, whatever we put in here. We're saying, well, if that condition is met, then with the object data manager, which I created to store all my variables, you can put this on the player if you want and just use the O player, but it's a good idea to use a data manager to like kind of store all your variables, and you make that persistent. See, I've set it as persistent, and then if I want to like control a switch from some point, I don't have to create an object just for that switch. I have all of these random variables and switches and like values stored on the data manager, so all I have to do is reference the data manager. Since it's persistent and it's loaded on the first screen, it'll always be there, and you can reference those, and it stops you from making 100 objects, right? You use this one data manager and you categorize it with note tags and stuff, and that'll help you stay organized and use less objects. Also, if you're doing like a free version, you can only have like 5 objects, so you definitely need a data manager then if you're using like a free version. But anyway, back to the code. We're saying with that, wherever you put whatever you're using to store variables, we're going to create a new variable called material count plus plus. So we'll see on my data manager, I've got material count equals 0 on its crate. So as soon as the data manager is created, we're creating a variable. We're saying we're going to say material count because we want to keep track of a certain number. So we're going to set it to 0 to start with. Now, when this material is colliding with the player, it's not going to crash because it already knows what material count is. So instead, it's going to take that variable that's stored wherever you put right here in the data manager for me, and you just put a plus plus after it. That means add 1 to it after you reference it, and add 1. So it's just going to be from 0 to 1, and then to 2. And you can see it's pretty simple, inline. This is calling a script which I'm not going to go over completely because I just did a tutorial on it. Look at my last tutorial if you want to see what I'm doing right here with this charge. I'm basically just creating a particle effect, and when the player, I can call different particle effects at any time I want by just referencing a script. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm making it, oh look, a little shiny, a little flashy thing for it. Then I'm doing, so you don't actually have to do that. Then I'm doing instance underscore destroy, and I'm getting rid of the material. So we collide with it with the player, we add 1 to the variable, and we remove it. Also, outside of this condition, just on its own, every step of the game, we're going to go image underscore angle plus equals 1. And that's just going to have it rotating. It's just going to keep rotating over and over and over. And you can give it plus 2 if you want it to rotate faster, whatever you want. You don't actually have to do that, but that's a little simple code for it. Now, we've got the material object, but how do we make them spawn all over the map, right? Well, we're going to make a material maker. So create a new object, and you're going to, basically, it only needs a create and an alarm, and it's a simple, simple thing. This is going to be, on the create step, we're going to use an alarm, so we have to prime that alarm. So we're going to say alarm 0, and this is stored like you would use brackets like on an array or something, but you're referencing the index of the alarm of 0. So you just put index of 0, or alarm 0, equals however many frames you want it to last. So I did it really fast for this tutorial. You can set it to whatever you want. If you want it to last 10 seconds, then you'd put 600. You know, every 10 seconds do this, then it would be 600, depending on your frame of your game. So that little game options cogwheel, you go to general and you can see your game frames per second. If you want your game to run at 60, you put that to 60. It's 30 by default, so you might want to click right there, click on general, and change that to 60. That also affects how your alarms work, so, and the timing. So set the game to 60 at the beginning and just run everything at 60. Highly recommended you do that. Unless you're drawing so many things that you need it to run at 30 because it might lag systems, but it's up to you. I would just recommend 60. So we're setting it, I'm doing it 1 second. You can do whatever you want, like I said. So create the alarm, set it to 60. Now we go to add event, we go to alarms, we alarm 0. We say, okay, after that alarm's been set and triggered, what happens? Well, we need to create that material, right? Because this is the material maker object. So we're going to say instance create layer x, y. Now we're referencing the location of this, so we do have to drag this on the map for this to work, which is really simple. You go to the map you want it on, you go to resources, you click on it, you drag it, and you drop it. And you can see I've already got it there, so I don't need 2 instances to delete. You click on it, and you'll see it highlights in blue. You press delete, and it'll do it. You can also right-click on it. Now you have to go over here. No, you can't right-click on it. So you don't get a bunch of options when it comes to it. But you can delete it manually from here. Let's see. This is our material maker. Let's just highlight it and delete it. It's gone. So we drag it, we drop it, boom, it's in the world. So when this map spawns, it's going to load all of these objects in that order. If for some reason it crashes and it's looking for a variable, but you created that variable, try adjusting the where these are at. Maybe this needs to be higher. You know, maybe this needs to load before this loads in order for it to work. So you can move stuff around so that it loads in a certain order. You can also edit the creation excuse me. You can also edit the creation code of the room, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, back to the code. So we were instance create layer XY, this location. We're naming the layer we want it to appear on. And in this instance, we want instance layer, you know, verbatim. So we double quote, we type in instance layer. Whatever you name it here, you type it in there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be called instance layer, but it's just the idea. That's what it is. It's the main instance layer. It's the layer that the player's running around on and everything like that. And then we say, okay, well, we're going to spawn something right at this location and on this layer. But what do we spawn? We're going to spawn the object material. Now, when the material spawns, it's going to do its own creation code. Basically, it gets created at this location where this one's at. So they all start at the same spot. But on the very first frame, it's going to change its X and Y value and instantly jump to where it should be randomized, right? And then it'll do all this other stuff after that. And at the same time, once the alarm goes off, it's only going to happen one time unless you make it a loop. So how do you make it a loop? You set the alarm inside of the alarm, and then at the beginning, when the thing is created, it's going to go off in 1 second, and in 1 second it spawns one of these things, and then it resets the alarm, and then it spawns another one, and resets, and spawns, and resets, and spawns, and resets, and you have an infinite, you know, now you have a generator, you have a material maker. So that's how you do it. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. How did I get the code of at the top to show like that box for the oxygen bar, and how did I do the show text right there? Well, that's really easy. I've got an object for an overlay. Now, you want to do an object for some sort of overlay. That way you can draw your GUI and edit all of the elements of that GUI all on one object. I think it's kind of important that you control your entire GUI from one object. You know, I'm not 100% sure if people do it the other way around, but from when I try to do it controlling the GUI from multiple objects, I've had lots of problems. So just by making draw GUI its own like one object, and it controls everything on the GUI. That's what I'm going to be doing. So when I put more stuff like health bars or whatever, I'll put all of them right here on the GUI on this same overlay. So I made an object for that specific thing. I'm calling it O_overlay1. Like I said, I don't know, so maybe there'll be an overlay too. I'm going to do some more tests and figure it out. But for now, I know this works this way, and I want to do it this way. So we have to do some conditions, right? Because if we don't, then once we need this to be a persistent object. We need the overlay to show at the beginning. I mean, you could possibly move it around and have it display wherever you want. But for me, I wanted it to display at the beginning for certain things. But I also want to be able to toggle when things turn on and turn off. So I'm making simple switch conditions for when things turn on. So on the create, I'm making two switch conditions. I'm saying display the O2 level, which is our global oxygen bar, and display material count, which is just going to show the material text and the number of, you know, the variable of how many materials we have. And I'm setting them both to false. I'm going to say at the beginning, when this object is created, turn these two variables to false. Now that doesn't necessarily do anything, but when we add our event, our draw GUI, we're going to display the O2 meters, and we're going to do all of this code, but only if display O2 levels is true. So when you make a condition and all it has is one Boolean value or one variable inside there, it's only going to meet that condition if that is set to a value of true. Now at the beginning, it's set to false, so nothing's going to happen. So what this does is it lets us control when we want this to appear. So if I were to take this code and put it outside of it, it would display it right at the beginning on the open screen. So if we were to, you know, like at the very beginning, you would see material 0 and you would see the oxygen level on the start map, right? You know, on your title screen. You don't need to see all that on the title screen. So this is a way to use a simple switch to, you know, or, you know, a Boolean value variable just to determine. You see, when we entered this room, the material was that those variables were set to true, and then it turned on. And there they are. So we're doing that. We're saying set these to false. Now we still have to decide when we want them to go to true, right? So just set them to false for now, whatever you call them, and put those as the conditions. Now, how do you actually draw that box? Well, there's quite a few different things that went into it, but let's go over it real quick. We're drawing a rectangle and color. So then you just basically put in the number value of where you want it to be. Click on the little function, and you'll see at the bottom what it's asking for in those. This helps so much. Also, you can middle click, go to the help file, read up on it if you need more information. Most of the time, you'll be able to decipher what it's looking for just by clicking inside of the, the, what do they call it, arguments? Right inside there. So we need an X1, a Y1. That's a spot, a location. And then an X1 and Y2. So it's saying, give me this point in the top left corner. Where does that start? All right, give me another location on the bottom right corner. Okay, we're going to draw you a rectangle between those 2 points. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So you need 4 locations, right? X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Then you need 4 colors, because each corner is going to have its point where it kind of gradients from one point of color to another. So I've got like a bunch of different color bars, and how you reference colors is basically you just do C underscore and then you type in the color you want. There's a bunch of built-in colors. You can also use other codes to put in customized colors if you want, but this is an easy way, and there's a lot of colors built in, so you could check them out. C underscore and watch it autofill stuff. If it's C underscore, you'll see we got aqua, black, blue, dark gray, lime, purple, like all kinds. They're all there, so you can use all of those quick codes to put in 4 colors. So we put a comma between each argument, and then at the end we're going to say outline it. Do you want this to be the outline of it? And you say true if you want it to have that outline, or false. It's up to you. Then we're going to set the color of drawing to gray. Now this is to put the background color. It's actually setting the it looks like the background because there's an outline above it, but it's actually the whole color of the rectangle. We're setting it to gray. So then we set the color, and then we're drawing that rectangle. We're just putting in the location. We're just saying, where do you want to put it? X1, Y1, X2, Y2, right? So it'll be different for you. You don't need this specific code. Just give it 2 points, and then you can say false if you want the outline, or true if you do want the outline. Then I'm saying draw health bar. Now this is a great way to shorthand this code. It makes it a lot easier. So we put the same thing. We're going to say, okay, well the health bar still needs 2 points. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So we give it that information. And then after that, it's going to say, well, what is the amount? Like, how do we know? This is the code that you're going to need 2 variables for. Now, for me, I'm using, on the data manager, I'm setting global O2 levels and also max global O2 levels. So you need like a current and a max variable for the health bar function, so that you can say, this is how much we got. This is how much it should be at full value. Now, we need to make that equal into 100. So basically you take the minimum, the current amount. So I'm referencing this by saying O underscore data manager dot. Now that's saying this global O2 level is a variable that's stored on this object. So where we're looking for this variable inside of this object, and that's how you format it. So we're saying this is our current O2 level, which starts at 0. And then we're going to divide that by our current max global level, which is also a variable stored in this object. Hopefully the formatting's clear. And then we're putting the whole thing in parentheses because we want that to happen first, right? So whatever happens in parentheses is going to go first. So it's going to divide this by this. So 0 out of 100, well, anything, it's still going to be 0, right? But if this starts getting more oxygen, say it becomes 1, right? So we've got 1 divided by 100. Well, now we actually have a percentage value. So we need it to be a number that will equal up to that full scale. I don't know how to explain it really, but if you multiply the whole value of your minimum divided by your maximum by 100, then it gives you the exact number it's looking for from a bar that's completely empty to completely full. Hopefully that was kind of clear. I'm sorry if it wasn't, but that should give you some good information on how to do the health bar. Then the same thing is going to happen here, and we're going to show colors. Let's see what this goes on for a little while. So this is going to be the background color, and this is going to be the color of it when it's at its smallest, and it's going to gradient. As it gets more full, the color is going to change a little bit. So then it's going to you select the color for it to be at full, and then you select the direction. Which way is the bar filling up? So 0 is to the right, so you're basically specifying a rotation number from 0 to 360. What direction is the bar going to, right? We want it to go from left to right. So on the scale you have 0 for the right, you have 90 for the top, You have 180, 270. And so we want it to go to the right, so we're going to point in 0. And it's just kind of weird how it works, you know, 0, and then it kind of goes that way, counterclockwise. But anyway, selecting 0 will have the bar fill up from left to right, and you can change that if you want to. 180 will go right to left. And then false, or this next one is 2 Boolean values, one for showing the background and one for showing the border. And I've decided to not use either of those, but you can, if you want, just set those to true. Then we're going to select our color. I'm going to say, okay, now we're no longer using gray because we're going to do something else. We have to type in something. So change the color again. Remember, it reads just like English. It goes from the top and goes to the bottom. Set the color, do this, do that, change the color. Now do this and do that and that. Right? So now after we've changed the color to white, we're going to draw text. We're just picking a location, X and Y, one location, to say where do you want to draw the text. And then you put in double quotes and you say, draw that, you know, whatever that is, whatever you want, a string. You know, you could put in a variable right there and it'll, sometimes you might have to go string and then put in a variable right there to give you a conversion. But most of the time it'll work just like that. Like you can put in, like, if it was a variable like thunder or whatever, draw the thunder thing, and it would read it. See how it turns like the blue for me. So it's saying, let's find thunder, but it can't find thunder. So anyway, hopefully that was clear. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to display our material count. So that was all for the bar that showed oxygen, and then it showed the oxygen level. So it knows what that bar means. And, you know, the player does. And then now we need to show the text. We're going to say, if display material count is on, which we still have to figure out, when do we turn the switches on? How do we turn the switches on? We're going to get to that next. So we're going to say draw text at X and Y location, and then what you want it to say. Then we're going to do the same thing. Draw text at X and Y location. We're giving it a different location, right, so they don't overlap. And we're going to say, I want you to draw the value that's in material count that's stored inside of the object data manager. So it's going to type out materials in a space, and then it's going to type out that. And that's basically our graphical user interface in a nutshell. And all we have to do now is decide when do we want it to turn on. And how we turn it on is we reference the data manager, and we reference the overlay, because these values are stored in the overlay. So we would do with O_overlay1 dot display O2 levels equal true, wherever and whenever we want. So we're going to actually do that when the player spawns, because the player spawns right inside the world. So we'll go to the object player, and with this player, when it's created, it does a bunch of stuff. All we're looking at is that. So we're going to say, display the O2 levels right here. We're going to say with object_overlay1, display O2 levels is true, and display material count is true. So when the player spawns, so does his graphical user interface. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This tutorial went on longer. We will continue working on this project. I think I talked about adding the generators and stuff, but we'll have to do that in the next one. This was double the length that I thought it was going to be. So there's plenty more to do in this project, but it's getting some functionality built into it, and hopefully you enjoy these tutorials. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I've got lots of GameMaker Studio 2 tutorials. I've got RPG Maker MV tutorials if you're interested in that. I do first impressions videos. I play classic RPGs, all kinds of stuff. I would love to have you guys as a supporter on Patreon as well. But thank you guys so much for watching. That's it for this video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.